Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in Junior English. We are in our My Perspectives volume starting on page 102, 103 and beyond. We're looking at the letter to John Adams by Abigail Adams. There's a fascinating history here that we're only going to get a real brief chance to look into, and yet I think it's going to be remarkable for us to do so. Let's work with our professional reader. I'm going to start with you on page 103 with some of the background information and some information about Abigail Adams herself, and then we'll jump right into the actual reading and the annotation of this brief passage.
Letter to John Adams by Abigail Adams. Letter. Background. Throughout their courtship and marriage, John and Abigail Adams wrote more than 1,000 letters to one another.
Circle that.
Although their letters are often affectionate and even playful, they also reflect the couple's underlying awareness that they were key players in the unfolding of history. Abigail wrote this and several other letters to her husband while he attended the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. About the author. Abigail Adams, born 1744, died 1818, was the wife of John Adams, the second President of the United States, and the mother of John Quincy Adams, the sixth President. She was also one of the most important and influential women of her time. A dedicated supporter of women's rights and the American Revolutionary Movement, Adams wrote many letters to her husband and others expressing her opinions. In these letters, she included vivid descriptions that capture the essence of life in early America. Adams was born Abigail Smith in Weymouth, Massachusetts. At the age of 19, she married John Adams. The couple had 3 sons and 3 daughters. Abigail, who had not been educated as a child, made sure all of her children, including a daughter, received a thorough education. This was something few American girls enjoyed at the time. Abigail died in 1818 after spending the last 17 years of her life at the Adams family home in Massachusetts. In 1840, a first volume of her letters was published. In the ensuing decades, other collections, biographies, and histories have followed. Today, Abigail Adams is widely recognized as a writer and a pioneer of the American women's movement.
Page 104.
Letter to John Adams by Abigail Adams. Braintree, March 31st, 1776. I wish you would ever write me a letter half as long as I write you, and tell me, if you may, where your fleet are gone, what sort of defense Virginia can make against our common enemy, whether it is so situated as to make an able defense. Are not the gentry lords and the common people vassals? Are they not like the uncivilized natives Britain represents us to be? I hope their riflemen, who have shown themselves very savage and even bloodthirsty, are not a specimen of the generality of the people. I am willing to allow the colony great merit for having produced a Washington, but they have been shamefully duped by a Dunmore. I have sometimes been ready to think that the passion for liberty cannot be equally strong in the breasts of those who have been accustomed to deprive their fellow creatures of theirs.
Important line, right?
Of this I am certain, that it is not founded upon that generous and Christian principle of doing to others as we would that others should do unto us. Do you not want to see Boston? I am fearful of the smallpox, or I should have been in before this time. I got Mr. Crane to go to our house and see what state it was in.
105,
I find it has
page
been
105.
occupied by one of the doctors of a regiment. Very dirty, but no other damage has been done to it. The few things which were left in it are all gone. Cranch has the key which he never delivered up. I have wrote to him for it, and am determined to get it cleaned as soon as possible and shut it up. I look upon it a new acquisition of property, a property which 1 month ago I did not value at a single shilling, and could with pleasure have seen it in flames. The town in general is left in a better state than we expected, more owing to a precipitate flight than any regard to the inhabitants, though some individuals discovered a sense of honor and justice and have left the rent of the houses in which they were, for the owners and the furniture unhurt, or if damaged, sufficient to make it good. Others have committed abominable ravages. The mansion house of your president, John Hancock, is safe, and the furniture unhurt, whilst both the house and furniture of the Solicitor General, Samuel Quincy, have fallen a prey to their own merciless party. Surely the very fiends feel a reverential awe for virtue and patriotism, whilst they detest the parricide and traitor. I feel very differently at the approach of spring to what I did a month ago. We knew not then whether we could plant or sow with safety, whether when we had toiled we could reap the fruits of our own industry, whether we could rest in our own cottages, or whether we should not be driven from the sea-coast to seek shelter in the wilderness. But now we feel as if we might sit under our own vine and eat the good of our land. I feel a gaiety de corps, to which before I was a stranger. I think the sun looks brighter, the birds sing more melodiously, and nature puts on a more cheerful countenance. We feel a temporary peace, and the poor fugitives are returning to their deserted habitations. Though we felicitate ourselves, we sympathize with those who are trembling lest the lot of Boston should be theirs. But they cannot be in similar circumstances unless pusillanimity and cowardice should take possession of them. They have time and warning given them to see the evil and shun it. I long to hear that you have declared an independency. And by the way, in the new code of laws, which I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion, and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation.
Page 106.
That your sex are naturally tyrannical is a truth so thoroughly established as to admit of no dispute, but such of you as wish to be happy willingly give up the harsh title of master for the more tender and endearing one of friend. Why, then, not put it out of the power of the vicious and the lawless to use us with cruelty and indignity with impunity? Men of sense in all ages abhor those customs which treat us only as the vassals of your sex. Regard us, then, as beings placed by Providence under your protection, and in imitation of the Supreme Being, make use of that power only for our happiness. April 5th. Not having an opportunity of sending this, I shall add a few lines more, though not with a heart so gay. I have been attending the sick chamber of our neighbor Trot, whose affliction I most sensibly feel but cannot describe, stripped of 2 lovely children in 1 week. George, the eldest, died on Wednesday, and Billy, the youngest, on Friday, with the canker fever, a terrible disorder so much like the throat distemper that it differs but little from it. Betsy Cranch has been very bad, but upon the recovery. Becky Peck they do not expect will live out the day. Many grown persons are now sick with it in this street. It rages much in other towns. The mumps, too, are very frequent. Isaac is now confined with it. Our own little flock are yet well. My heart trembles with anxiety for them. God preserve them. I want to hear much oftener from you than I do. March 8th was the last date of any that I have yet had. You inquire of whether I am making saltpeter. I have not yet attempted it, but after soap making believe I shall make the experiment. I find as much as I can do to manufacture clothing for my family, which would otherwise be naked. I know of but one person in this part of the town who has made any. That is Mr. Tertius Bass, as he is called, who has got very near 100 weight, which has been found to be very good. I have heard of some others in the other parishes. Mr. Reed of Weymouth has been applied to go to Andover to the mills which are now at work, and has gone. I have lately seen a small manuscript describing the proportions for the various sorts of powder, fit for cannon, small arms, and pistols. If it would be of any service your way, I will get it transcribed and send it to you. Every one of your friends sends their regards, and all the little ones. Your brother's youngest child lies bad with convulsion fits. Adieu. I need not say how much I am your ever faithful friend.
It is interesting that she finishes this, with this distinction between friend and master that she made in paragraph 10, and this is how she ends. What a compelling piece of reading. Let's just go through it quickly. Notice, first of all, we are placing this work in terms of the larger context of what's happening back home, because of course her husband is going to be away. Notice that by paragraph 7 we are talking about the spring and the hope of the spring. She uses even the French phrase joy of heart, as she hopes that everything will happen. Then in paragraph 9 she gets to what for many is the heart of this reading. Remember the ladies, she says, as you are working towards independence. And then over to page 106 and paragraph 10, notice she makes this distinction because she says that males are by nature maybe more tyrannical, and therefore take care to think of women more as wives, as friends, rather than as masters to provide for happiness. The last word of paragraph 10, which obviously will take us back to the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By the paragraph 11 and 12, we will be able to get a window onto the real hardships of this time, especially for the women and the mommies, because of all of the potentialities of sick children. Notice 2 die in a single week, and the fear, of course, even that her own child is quite ill. Laced in this as well is that she is learning how to make gunpowder. So it tells us a lot at this window, tells us a lot of what the women were already starting to concern themselves and deal with. Yes, they had to take care of families, but they also were involved in the creating of gunpowder for reasons that would, I think, be somewhat self-evident given what's about to transpire in terms of the American Revolution. I hope that this is a reading that for you opens the window on a whole lot of the individuals of the time. Thank you.